Finally. Oh man, YouTube, what are you doing to me? What are you doing? Good evening, everybody.
Hello, everybody, and happy Kickstarter launch day.
Woohoo!
Mikey was stressed out because it was hiding the go live button from him. Like it
I
just
was
wasn't
like,
showing.
but it says excellent connection. And then I was like, I'll just refresh the page just in case it's and YouTube, Google had signed me out. So that's great.
Yeah, it's fine. How is everybody? Mikey, happy Kickstarter successfully launched day.
We are when? It's about 15 minutes past, isn't it? The Kickstarter.
We have 13 minutes to go.
13 minutes to go. Wow. And we're
20 seconds to comply.
Yes. It says.
Sorry, showing my age though.
Yeah, I don't know what we're at the moment. I'm on the wrong page, but thank you, everybody. Yeah, I was going to say thank you, everybody, for your support. This is absolutely amazing. I've had so much fun so far.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Kickstarter celebration screen. We're a little bit out of it because we've been trying to get things working, and I've also been moved up the screen by my cat. So Mikey's going to have to move that. But yeah, we have successfully funded. At the time of speaking, we're at 13,365 and 2090. I'm saying at the time of speaking because somebody is repeatedly changing their pledge up and down, either because they want to see the numbers go up and down or because they're legit trying to figure out their finances. Either is fine with me. You do you. But everybody, we have successfully funded, and thank you so much for your support and your help and getting the word out and your bug fixes and your game balance isn't in yet and things like that. We're very excited.
Yes, so we've got about 10 minutes now until fully funded, and whatever that number happens to be. Later on, we want to go through what's happening next as well, because we've got a few things that we need to get together before we tell you. And we've got, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about another thing that we were setting up today in this stream or whether it'll be later on. But we've got some exciting stuff following on because we want to make sure that this project can continue. I'll say no more at the moment. So there's lots to go through. And I'm going to be all over that
this stream.
Yeah.
We are currently on our procedural generation Kickstarter goal. Now, I should point out to everybody that this is largely due to a couple of very large pledges in the last few minutes or the last day, which is awesome and fantastic. However, there's going to be a 2-week period where Kickstarter collects the money and things can happen in that time. People can decide they don't have the money or whatever it is. So we will let you know, and Kickstarter will let you know the actual amount raised. But we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. You know what I could do? I could show off the game as it is at the moment, because if you just tune in every week, you won't have seen
what
many
I was
of the
going to say.
changes. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
So after our last stream, we added the overworld. And since you guys have seen it, we've actually added clouds. Mikey's made a lovely HDRI sky, which then got made into a non-HDRI sky because of GitHub. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So I'm going to launch the game. The audio will be quite loud. I'll go in and turn that down in a second. So let's go ahead and show off what we've got so far. And of course, if you're new to us right now, then what you can do is there's still time to pledge. Should be absolutely awesome.
What will you be pledging for in the next 10 minutes? You'll be pledging for the courses that we're going to be making to make this action role-playing game in Godot 4. Currently, this prototype is in 3.3, so we'll be remaking it in 4, and in Blender, and in LMMS. So the visual assets, the concepting art, the code, and the music.
This has come along so far. It's come a long way.
So one of the things I did is I took a wind shader for grass from GD Quest and adapted it for our purposes. And now all the leaves and ferns and trees move, and it just makes such a difference. Also, I can't hear it because I've got the sound muted, but hopefully you guys can hear the bird song and the water when it gets closer.
I'm actually going to turn that up a little so people can experience it a little bit more.
Yep. So currently this overworld exists just to show a different environment you can make, and it's basically a lobby. There's a store there that gives you best deal. There's actually a couple of items hidden in here that people haven't found.
I'm not going to show it off, though. I'm not going to show off the hidden item, even though I know where it is. But I will show off the little picnic area at the back here.
Picnic area also has a hidden item that I don't know if anyone's found yet.
Ooh.
The new control system is in, which means that Aria will always turn to face the way the camera is facing. I miss being able to turn around and look at her face, but
Ooh.
You're right, gameplay first.
Yeah.
And we are running at, I've capped the frame rate at 60 frames a second, just to stop people's GPUs from overheating.
Yeah, I'm
But I can
put
hit
my frame
60 frames
counter
a
up.
second constantly.
Yeah, I'm on
So, yeah.
165 frames per second because.
So we'll be teaching you how to make this using the various plugins and tools available in Godot 4. I'm hesitating as I say that because I'm expecting the height terrain plugin, the scatter plugin, and the waterways plugin to be adapted for 4, but of course we don't have a guarantee on that, but I'm expecting that. If not, we'll make the terrain in Blender and bring it in now.
Nice.
The grass is all a multi-mesh array. The trees are static instances. Like all of this is done with scatter and waterways, just to make it as seamless as we can. And we've got quite a lot of stuff going on here. And here's PT.
2 gold for a health potion? No way, I'll keep it. I'm probably going to need it.
Yep. PT's got to pay rent. Not here. Obviously, PT's got to.
Wherever he lives. So let's go into the dungeon, which many of you would have seen before. So we've now got level loading, of course. We can go.
We have got level loading. There is a bug that my girlfriend did find just now, which is if you press restart game, you go to the dungeon. Because I haven't rewired that button. But good to know. Oh, break PT. Jelly did manage to break PT earlier. I don't know how. I think he just kept haggling too hard until eventually PT broke.
So these chests all have random loot in them. So there'll be
a
different
chance for random loot.
Yes. So you can click and drag. You can also just double click as well. Oi! What have I got here? Oh, it's a 2-handed weapon. You know what that means?
I do know what that means.
So we've got another shop down here. Now, there's a difference between the shops, isn't there? Not these two,
yeah.
but...
the shops on the overworld will give you a better price. Their profit margin is set to lower. They'll still charge you a lot, but the ones down here are more expensive. The idea being that the shops in the dungeon are more of a risk. Maybe you really need this, or can you
Ooh.
bear to hold out?
Shiny. You've added particle effects to my gems. Nice.
No, they've been there for a week.
Well, I'm not that observant sometimes.
You told me I like the particle effects.
I slept since then. Come on, boys. La 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 la. Oh, that was close. I didn't mean to do that.
6 minutes left on the Kickstarter. Dun, dun, dun.
So there's lots of loot now one can pick up in the dungeon.
There is lots of loot one can pick up. We haven't made any changes to the dungeon since the last time you guys saw it, but there is a reason to pick up the loot.
Because we
and
can
of course, the idea is not to make a perfectly balanced game, but to make a structure to show you the kinds of things you can make in your game, right? Like, we're not making an indie game where we're making a series of courses so that you guys can make fantastic indie games and become billionaires.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't go into game dev to become a billionaire. We have made a few stretch goals, and we'll talk about those in a bit, and we're very happy.
Yes, come on. I'm going to get to the boss, because I've got a 2-handed weapon.
You don't even need the traps anymore with a 2-handed weapon.
Nope. So this is one of the playability issues, shall we say, because we haven't sat down for hours and play tested and play tuned like you would with your own game. So a 2-handed weapon has the amazing area of effect. This bad boy.
Hello, Colin. Thanks for joining us.
And of course, I love this potion.
Yeah, I like this potion too. Like, all these values need tweaking. The idea was to make these skeletons trash mobs and the boss a little bit harder. But you're going to want various NPC types.
Oh, stuck. Put the weapon away, isn't it?
Yep.
Or have I clipped? There we go. Shall I?
Go for it.
Ow. Oh, I like that. All the lights went off as well when I did that. Yeah. That is perfect.
Thank you. Well, you no longer count as a player because you've been removed from the collision task.
Nice. So
yeah,
there
that's
we go.
the state of the game right now. We didn't show you the traps in there, but it's in there. You can play the prototype right now on our itch page, which I should probably link.
Oh, how often have I broke this game? Plenty of times.
6. 3 minutes to go, peeps.
I'm going to open that back up. I'm not going to...
Let me bring it up.
What are we on at the moment?
Project. So just in case you guys haven't played this, we'll be updating this prototype live. Does that show? Do I have admin rights? I don't know if my chat link showed. We will be updating this prototype as we continue prototyping. There's plenty more stuff to work on. And in about 3 minutes, we'll talk about that.
Yes, excitement. I don't have any. I should have made a little fanfare today.
I mean, we made balloons.
I mean, I've got my keyboard here, and I can quickly open LMMS and go.
No, you're fine.
No, you sure?
Yeah, okay. You're good.
I'll just have to make them myself.
Oh, that is better. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. You're in safe hands with me, guys. Don't worry.
There we go. So yeah, we have a successful Kickstarter. We're really excited about this course. We're going to talk about the next steps. Yes, in fact, they were inspired by Fable. Good catch, Gerald. Gerard, not Gerald. Gerard. I'm going to guess it's French because the name. Je sais pas, peut-être. Mais oui, c'était Fable.
Je ne comprends pas.
Je suis un petit horloge. You're
a clock. You're a small orange? What?
I'm a small clock.
got lost in
I haven't spoken French regularly for like 30 years, so I'm rusty. Dutch. I mean, it's a border town.
Fantastic.
Super excited about these courses. Okay, so let's talk about what you guys can expect. So,
yes.
I'm waiting for Godot 4. Which is the sequel to the Waiting for Godot franchise. It's the exciting one where we go to the oceans. No, I'm waiting for Godot 4 before I can remake this to Godot 4, get the prototype better, and then start recording on that. But not every course requires Godot 4. So, Mikey.
Hello.
Tell us about the Blender and Limamus. Not a strict timeline, but what kind of thing?
No, we don't have a strict timeline yet, but over the next couple of weeks, as the pledges come in and are collected, we can have a look at prioritizing and giving you guys all a timeline of when you can expect specific bits of content to come out.
Oh, Mikey.
I know.
We're at 74 seconds and counting down.
But mine's just slightly higher. Perhaps there's lag. 69. Nice. Seconds left. Yes.
So don't forget they've got a delay, but yeah, we're gonna count this down.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I'll continue. 60 seconds.
It's red.
It's gone red.
It's red.
It's gone red.
It's red.
It has gone red.
It's gone red.
50 seconds. Okay. Actually, whilst it's counting down there. So the Blender stuff. Blender 3 is going to be out in December time. Apparently now it's been pushed back from September, which is absolutely fine. Everything that we're going to be covering anyway will be not really specific to Blender and things like Cycles X, which is their new rendering engine. We won't be rendering these models. Of course, you can render some nice sort of like cover art and things like that using the models over in Blender, but we'll be mainly focused on exporting them to use them in Godot. 15 seconds. We're going to miscount 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year!
Oh, it's got confetti
thing. Oh. Okay, so we are officially backed at £13,410.90.
Who put the 90 pence in? Who put that in?
That's amazing. I want to find out who did that. I don't know. That's not necessarily the final amount we receive. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we get that money. We will keep you guys informed.
Yes.
Okay, question from Cesar. Aren't you afraid Godot 4 release can delay too much the course recordings? It is a possibility, and this is one of the risks we put forward. But we felt that with Godot 4 on the horizon, making something of this size in Godot 3 just wasn't going to be as useful for the students. And honestly, probably wouldn't be worth it for us because we'd make it and then immediately have to either pull it down and remake
Or
it or
update
just
it.
say, hey, we made a course that nobody wants to buy. So that's the thing.
It's a bit different. So when the Blender content comes out in Blender 2.7, nice, Blender 2.93 onwards, then that's absolutely fine because there's not going to be, even though it's a number change from 2 to 3 when it comes to Blender, there's not a significant change in the UI and everything else. However, the difference between Godot 3 and Godot 4 is a fundamental shift. Even some of the coding will be significantly different. And of course, setting up using the Vulkan render engine, that's going to be completely different as well. So there's
a lot of other changes, like the way the script is running, the fact that static typing in Godot 4 can lead to speed improvements of up to 20%, which on the amount of work we've had to do on optimization here, and we could talk about some of this when we look at the overworld, like there's some things we did that made a massive difference. There's a lot to look at. And then there's new additions, like the new navigation system, which is just awesome. There's collision particles, which I'm looking forward to. There's all kinds of great stuff there. The new lighting system is amazing. So yes, it is a risk, but Godot 4 is coming out. Juan is absolutely convinced it's coming out this year. He did originally say September 31st. I think he was trolling because there aren't 31 days in September. So I think that's a thing. But yeah, it's a risk, but I think it's a risk worth taking because making this in Godot 3 at this time is just going to feel less and less relevant for everybody.
Yeah. And of course, we can start recording the moment that Godot 4 beta is released, because then there won't be too many changes between that and the final release.
The moment. It's going to take me a few days to a couple of weeks to a month to redo this, get it polished, refactor my code. A lot of my code is quick and dirty prototyping that is fine for a game, but is not great for teaching. Like, I want to get that to the best possible.
Of course, absolutely. And what we will do is we will keep a timeline. We'll probably publish it in several places. And when we release things, we'll let everybody know, which is really important because one of the things that we'll be doing is, depending on what pledge level you've backed at, is we will be adding you to specific sort of placeholder courses on our site so that when we release the content, you'll get access to it.
Yeah. We do have some people who backed for early access, including the lifetime members. They'll get the prototype stuff as it's uploaded.
Yep.
So we can get some feedback from them, and then we've got enough feedback and see what we need to, redo and stuff. We'll put it out to the big wide world. Shall we talk a little bit about what's in the core offering and what's in the things we've got? Should we talk about the new thing?
I think covering what we've got so far would be a great idea, and then we can go into the new thing.
New thing.
Yes.
Okay. So we are making a series of courses on how to make your Godot 4 action RPG. Fine. At the base level, we are talking about an asset pack for a dungeon, an asset pack for medieval weapons, some UI elements, a rigged and animated character. We've got Arya here.
Yes.
A game soundtrack, atmospheric game soundtrack course, modular generated weaponry, so how to make the weaponry in Blender, and core ARPG course. That's very basic AI, generating a dungeon, basic chests and inventory, and basic combat and stamina and health, right? So just how to get the bare bones of a game like this working.
And then we start on our first stretch goal, which was the overworld, which is what we've been showing off all this week. And of course, things have accelerated lots, so we haven't managed to cobble everything together. So we've got nature and outdoors as an asset pack. We've got Godot particles as well, and an additional set of soundtracks. Part 2. I'm just reading from. We're literally reading. If you want to follow along on the Kickstarter campaign.
Now we have said in the past that these soundtracks are. We're going to try and design these so that they'll be dynamic, is the word I'm looking for. Yes. So there'll be a soundtrack that goes in, and then we can bring in other instruments or so forth on certain cues. So when you're around traps, or when you're around monsters, or if there's a boss, or whatever else we need, or shop music. I've got an idea for shop music. Mikey liked my idea. We haven't done it yet.
Lots of things to do. And then course-wise, so those are the asset packs. And then course-wise, we have 2D UI element creation. So we'll actually be guiding you through the process of creating some UI elements that you can use on screen. And of course, once you've got those skills, you can take other people's assets, etc., and adapt them to your own use as well. So that's a really good skill set to have. Concepting your world, Paul has joined us to do that. So that's a series of concept art. We're going to be using Blender and its amazingly powerful grease pencil tools to do that.
And if you don't know, Paul is the person who joined us to do his grease pencil course on our site, which is really cool. And you can use Blender to make incredible 2D graphics animations.
I'm amazed by how much Blender can do these days. It's a bit crazy. And then we've got creating your own dungeon, which will be putting together all of the assets to create that. And then we've got creating an environment as well. So we'll be talking about
so that's going to be talking how to make. Yeah, so that's going to be creating both the dungeon spaces and the overworld, switching between environments, so how to get the best optimization. And it's little things like when we switched to these flat shaded low poly look trees, but we had a different one beforehand that had a sort of texture on it with an alpha, and we just had a PNG relief and it looked great. But the frame rate was suffering, at least on my machine, and it was fine, but it was struggling. Yeah, and that's because of the alpha.
Yeah.
Right. The amount of transparencies it's having to calculate. And you got this many trees, like we have 1,000 static body trees, and we have, I've lost count. There's something like 30,000 flowers and a whole bunch of other trees. It's calculating the alpha prepass on all of these and slowing the thing down. So we move to flat shaded, and it's gone.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things we can look at there.
And then we go on to the next stretch goal, which is character classes.
The character classes, we've got an asset pack add-on for more armor and clothing. Right, so right now Arya has this shoulder thing and the straps and the knee pads, and that's all very good. But the idea was she was created so that we could put in different items and just.
In fact, those things can be swapped out currently. We just don't have models for those at the moment. So, if you were with us really early on, we had a simple set of characters, and we were switching out the meshes on them at runtime, which is pretty awesome. So we've got all the basics.
We do it with the skeleton potion.
Yes, exactly. You're swapping your your meshes out essentially.
We swap the body and all the armor pieces for a skeleton, but we actually have a different hair because the skeleton's a different height, so the hair has to be in a different place. Ahmed is looking forward to procedural generation. Yes, me too. We'll talk about that in a second.
We're getting there.
Okay, so courses, because the armor and the clothing is an asset pack. So we'll get the basic stuff you can get just as part of the courses. And if you pledged for the add-ons, you'll get the booster for additional things you can put in.
Yeah.
Character concepting course. So this is going to be how to draw concept art for characters.
Yep.
Creating nature, which is going to be Mikey, probably Mikey, making flowers and plants and rocks and plants and flowers and bushes and things. And there's actually quite a few things we learned there.
Yes, and I am going to look at doing some of them in a more procedural manner rather than trying to. Plants are very mathematical. I'll leave it there for now, and it'll be much more exciting during the course.
And I'm going to be running my M's. We've got the Godot particle system. So we'll be using Godot's particle system in Godot 4 to be getting all kinds of magic effects and the special weapon effects and really upping our game there. And the reason we need to do that is we've now got spells coming in, spells and projectiles, because we've got character and weapon classes. So now, when you begin your game, you can either pick or have picked for you, depending on how you write your game. Can Arya use two-handed weapons or one-handed weapons or magic? We haven't yet picked the magic weapon. Maybe it's a staff, maybe it's a wand, maybe it's an orb, maybe it's a little piggy. I don't know.
Could be an orb that floats by you.
Yep.
Nice. And then spells and projectiles, which you've just mentioned, and keys and locks. So we'll be able to stop the player entering certain areas, having to collect things, maybe even a quest to find a certain book now.
Exactly. I mean, and we'll talk about that in a moment because we've got some ideas for procedural generation. Pakosh says, are you using the IK binding as the weapons? We are not. We are using a bone attachment, and the weapons are actually so the weapon itself is a resource file. That resource file links to inventory information, the tooltip, the value, which I've now hidden from the players, the icon, what type it is. So I'm a weapon is a subclass of item. It also links to its rigid body and its mesh. The rigid body is the thing that gets placed out in the world, but the mesh is the thing you hold, because you really do not want to be moving rigid body items through changing their global transform, which is what a bone attachment does. And we discovered this. I mean, I knew that anyway, but sort of in the back of my mind, like, don't do that. Fine, whatever. When we had 5 or 6 or 10 skeletons on screen, and my entire game would slow down. And it's simply because it's trying to move rigid bodies that way.
Which is something you should avoid.
Yep. But yeah, it's a great question. We are using IK though. Currently, the animations in the prototype are from Mixamo. We do have like on the plans to make our own animations because we can't give those out in courses. We can't distribute those. You can use those, but we can't give them to you. So what we're doing is we've got the walk animation, the run animation, and the NPCs have access to standard attacks. We have a separate animation player for the player, and when Arya attacks, she's not running the NPC attack animation. She's running a copy of that, which only affects the upper body. And then we're using an IK, an inverse kinematic, to bring the axe to the right place, or the sword to the right place. Otherwise, it's over here somewhere, which works reasonably. I mean, it's not ideal, but it works reasonably. A good question.
Yes, usually IK, by the way, is often used for minor tweaks rather than major tweaks. And when we play the game at the moment, because we've had to, we're not using our own custom animations yet, so it'll be better when we're actually doing that. But with the body, you know, they're reaching all the way back here and going forward, we can change that. So IK is being used a bit more aggressively than it would normally be. It's usually done.
It's still a tweaking thing.
It's a tweaking thing rather than a massive change.
But there is some fun things you can do with IK if you set it up correctly. Like you can have the head moving towards the nearest character and all the rest of it. There's some great stuff you can do, or picking up items more accurately. We're not doing that because it's out of scope, but we can certainly point you in the right direction. So, because it's fun to play with.
And then we get to the recent stretch goal that we've come past, which is pretty awesome.
Kind of blown past, to be honest. It's been a wild. This has been a really wild ride. Like, I am so grateful to you guys, and Mikey is too. Like, we were like, we believe in this project. We hope people will like it. We'll put it out there and see what they're like. Oh yeah, no, this is great. Okay, procedural generation and roguelite, which absolutely changes everything.
So 2 more asset packs. We've got lovely loot. So we'll be talking about making your shinies for the game, especially if we want to get some loot pinatas in there.
Ingots and crowns and coins and cups and whatever, right? Lots and lots of variation.
Yeah. In fact, we were talking earlier about how procedural generation, as in random characteristics and loot, we can really make the game different each run.
Here. And I realize technically we fulfill that now because you go to a chest and there's random loot in it, but that's not what we mean. What we mean is the loot that you find is generated at runtime based on certain rules. So the loot maker or whatever it is, the item factory will roll the thing, and this is a chalice. So it's going to use the chalice model, and then it's going to roll a material. This is an iron chalice, and then it's going to roll how many keywords do I get? Like we've got a minimum, maximum keyword. I'm getting 2. Great. This is a cursed legendary iron chalice. Then it'll figure out the value from there. And those keywords may or may not have in-game properties or just change who will buy them or are they used in a quest. So being able to generate stuff like that on the fly is really what we're talking about. We also could go the traditional rogue path of having potions effects shuffled each time you play. So sometimes red is a health potion, sometimes it's a disguise potion, sometimes it's poison. I don't know if I want to do that. It's a thing you can do.
Yeah.
If you know how to do it, you could tweak your game to do it. What else we got? We got modular clothing and armor course. Mikey, what's a modular clothing and armor course?
So we want to be able to swap everything out and make things random. So much in the same way that Yann was saying about the potions and things, we can do exactly the same for different types of clothing, for armor. We can mix and match things. And the approach that I'm testing in the background at the moment is using empties conveniently positioned on your model so that you can swap things in and out really quickly. And there might be even some generative, that's the word, modeling going on there as well. So things can change depending on their position in Blender. You can set up all sorts of...
a great time to use nodes.
Yes, that's another possibility. So There's lots of things there. And then we've got the making of the modular dungeons as well, which is going to be all about making sure that you can make a dungeon yourself. So you've got the fundamental rules nailed down so you can make things that are modular. Because modular kind of has a couple of meanings. You've got modular as in things can be swapped out. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about a modular dungeon. We're talking about Lego pieces that fit together perfectly so that we can either paint them in Godot or just place them knowing that if you place them every 10 units, all the floors will line up. Just for an example there.
I mean, our dungeon pack works like that anyway, because every room, whether it's a corridor or a room or just a blank floor, is 20 meters by 20 meters. One question from Alex. Will there be any information on optimizing an inventory view for controller instead of mouse? Yes. In fact, one of my things that I want to do with this prototype is make mouse play more sensible. I mean, technically the mouse will work, but not well. Not mouse, the controller. The controller will work, but not well. I haven't bound the attack key or the jump key, but you could theoretically move around. But I want to get the camera working in there properly. Yeah. And it's actually not that difficult. It's a little time consuming, but you can set up how the windows work like that. I don't know how to move the windows easily with the controller, because these windows are all drag and drop. But
again, that can be one of the design decisions you make really early on. If it's going to be controller based, I remember this with a big thing with Oblivion when it first came out. So we're going back to Xbox 360 days. But I remember that there was a vast swathe of PC players that were really annoyed with it because the UI was set up for a controller. And it was ballooned. It was big, and you could only fit like your inventory. There would be like 10 items on screen, and PC players were like, no, I want like 50 items on screen. So when you change the controller type, you can fundamentally change your UI completely. You've got to think about that right from the very beginning, because it can have
tell you the one that always makes me think of that is No Man's Sky. And I love No Man's Sky. I actually started playing the new update the other day. Don't like the wait times on it, but it's very pretty and I like it. What I don't like is the interface, which is clearly designed for controller.
Yes.
But it means like X, cursor arrow, cursor arrow, cursor arrow, X, cursor arrow, F. Like, why? I have a mouse. Let me use the mouse. So yeah.
A great modern example. One thing with the asset packs, because we'll go on to the other courses that are coming up. So the asset packs themselves, they are all going to be made. They will work in other programs as well, but they will be made specifically to work out of the box with Godot. So you'll have your TSCN files ready to go, materials applied, if necessary, rigid bodies already in place, etc.
I got a question here before we go any further from Matatius, and this is one for you. Sorry if this was answered, but just wondering, will we learn some music theory tips in the audio courses? Any sound project expected?
So, in short, yes. I'm not going to do in any of the music courses specifically a deep dive into music theory. There are a couple of YouTubers out there like Andrew Huang. He's got a brilliant 30 minute intro to music, so I'll definitely signpost to those ones for the theory. We will be covering music theory in a more practical sense, so when we're making instrument choices, when we're basically chord choices or melodic choices, we'll actually be focused on why we're making those choices and focus on the more practical application of it. And I apologize for the whip, that's my fly zapper.
Is it?
Yeah, yes, it is. It
is. Very distracting sound. So yeah, you need some music theory to put these things together, but rather than like play with chord progressions and the different types of major and minor chords and all the rest of it, and I haven't done music theory in decades, so I'm very rusty on the terminology. We want this feeling. Like Mikey decided he wanted the lobby music, which I repurposed to also be the overworld music, to actually be medieval. So he built something based on medieval chords. When he gave me the first pass on the music for the dungeon, it was very spooky and minor key. Do, 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 do. No, that's Rachmaninoff. But then we changed it because we wanted a different feel in there. We didn't want it to be spooky. We wanted it to be an adventure. So we changed it to this nice xylophone-y thing, which isn't in game yet, but it's really cool.
It needs to be changed. One of the things, the xylophone's awesome, but because the music is looping, it's a bit piercing. It needs to come in, go out, and we need to play with that. And we will, of course, just to segue very quickly, we will still be updating the demo. We'll still be updating the project and keeping you guys updated with other things that we want to put in, etc. So
apart from anything else, we want to get your feedback on the solutions I find for this next bit. Making modular dungeons. So right now, our dungeon is a grid map. Grid maps have a lot of advantages.
Yep.
They also have some disadvantages, which weirdly come from the same place. It's very Sun Tzu. The strengths of a grid map are the weaknesses of a grid map.
Tell
You're
me
welcome,
about
Mikey.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. But moving to a modular dungeon allows not just procedural generation, but it allows us to do things like massive optimization. We can now cull areas of the dungeon the camera's not looking at, which you can't do with a grid map because a grid map is a single object. So if you cull it, you cull the whole thing.
It goes
which,
dark.
Which leads to massive performance costs, right? Which,
Yeah.
well, not massive, but it's certainly noticeable. So the idea is we'll create instead a series of rooms. Like we will manually place them, or if we're feeling really fancy, we'll write rules saying this is the kind of thing we would expect in this type of room. So generate me some of these as a tool script. Great,
Yeah.
I like this one, this one, this one, I'm saving it, right? You could just do fully randomized, but unless your algorithm is great, I would curate. And then we say, okay, here are the rules of the dungeon. You must start with an entrance, you must place an exit. And we could do the route where, okay, place some random rooms, put some corridors between them, call it done.
Yeah.
There's a few different ways you can do this. I'm not going to be using cellular automata because we're not making caves, but stuff you can do that. Random loot we talked about. Procedural buildings.
So this is really awesome. So proceduralness, as Jan's touching on there, you really need to curate your models going forward, unless you've got a really, really good algorithm, by which point you've probably spent half your life writing it rather than getting on with game dev. So in terms of procedural buildings, we'll start with a basic rule set, and we'll actually be generating buildings in Blender so you can have the artistic touch and you're in there straight away. So if you generate a basic building and then you go in and model on top of it afterwards, that's something that you can really do and really do well. It enables you to get a lot of base meshes done, so you can test them out in game, get the feel of them. A little bit more advanced than just cubes stacked on top of one another, but you can start like that. And similarly with the procedural characters. So one of the things with our character at the moment is she's fixed. There's not much variety. Obviously, you can change. You'll already have the skills to swap out meshes. That's fine. But what happens if you wanted to have broad shoulders? Or want her to be short? So we'll be using
different hairstyle.
Or different hairstyle. So there's loads of things that we can change, and we need to set that up in Blender.
Back that on character classes. We might decide, for instance, that anyone using a double-handed weapon has access to these hairstyles. Pick one randomly. Yeah. Right? If it's a roguelike, when you die, you'll either get a random character or you'll pick between these random characters with their strengths, advantages, and skills. I've been playing Rogue Legacy 2 recently, which does this really well. Like when you die, here's 3 of them. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Right. Some of them will have massive disadvantages, but a huge gold increase. And good game to play, by the way, if you want to look at the theory of roguelikes. It's really interesting.
And then modular weapons in Godot, we'll be taking the generated weaponry that we're going to do right at the very beginning, and then we'll give it over to Yann, and Yann will be able to produce.
So here's the thing, right? You could use generated weapons to, you have some basic rules, and here are the different types of weapons, and each weapon has these elements. Then you could say, okay, every sword must have a pommel, a hilt, a guard, and a blade. Okay? And you've designed 10 of each. And then you export them, and you say, here you go, here's 10 to the 4. No, 4. I can't do this, Mikey.
A lot.
Here's
you
lots.
end up with a lot. Yeah.
Here's lots and lots and lots of things. And that's fine. But what's much better is if you say, here's the pommels, here's the grips, here's the, give me 40 items. And then I can, in code, generate them through an item factory.
Yeah.
And say, this weapon is this. And we know the names of the files, so we could just save in the save file, this item is this. And it will just be that.
It's one of the reasons why we picked weapons, because not only are they quite prominent in the game, but it also means they've only got a few different parts to them, so it doesn't end up being overly complex. With a sword, for instance, you've got the hilt, the guard, and the blade as a very basic example, and you might put the different pummels on there. So you're talking about 4. I had to check then. I had the right number of fingers up. You'll have 4 different things that you're playing with, and you can create a vast array of objects from that, which is phenomenal.
And then on top of that, you can then run it through the same process as the loot. So what's the material? Now, you might not want a pewter blade, although it could be funny as a really weird weapon.
Like shape key, it deforms each time you hit it.
Well, no, pewter is like ceramic.
Oh, I thought it was like a lead thing. I can't remember.
No, it's a metal. You're right. It's not that soft, though. Well, anyway, you could have a ceramic one, or you could have a bone blade, or you could have a paper blade, right? It's like, this is useless, but maybe a certain quest thing will like it, or you're just going to throw it away because it's useless. Like, you could put those things in there, and then the same keywords, like flaming, or cursed, or blood drinking, or whatever it is.
Can link all together, which is phenomenal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that starts making each playthrough much more interesting. And then you've got to think of, do I want to sell this? Do I want to try and get out with my item and store it for future playthroughs? We've also got the idea that when you go into the dungeon will reset each time. So if you go in and manage to get out, we're not going to do the whole you must die in the dungeon. I mean, we can, but that's where I am at the moment. If you manage to get out and sell your stuff in the overworld, then, you know, you should get better prices for it, and so on.
Yeah. And I think that's the last one on there, isn't it? Yes. So that's where we've gotten to so far. However, we want.
But Mikey, what if people want more stuff?
But wait, there's more. That's what I was going to say. There is more. So Yann and I, on our last successful Kickstarter with Godot Getaway, we had a load of people that came to us afterwards saying, "Oh, it's a real shame that I missed it." So
We've also got people right now who like, I can't afford it yet. I'll get it later.
Yep. But we're gonna make sure that that's not an issue. So it's still in the works, being set up on the site at the moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a crowd-funded page on the site specifically for the Godot Action RPG. And from that, we've reduced the number of choices people have because we've just gone with what was most popular. So you'll be able to buy individual ones, you'll be able to buy the whole lot, and also the asset packs. They'll be slightly more expensive than they were on the Kickstarter, however, not by very much. So with that, what you'll be able to do is still support the project, and we will also honor the stretch goals. So if we actually grow and grow and grow, there'll be more and more content available for people. Now, it will be at time limits. Yann and I were discussing earlier and trying to work out, well, how long do we run that offer for? Because we were thinking, oh, okay, when the beta version of Godot 4 comes out, and then we laugh because what happens if it comes out tomorrow? So we're thinking around the end of November as a cut-off point for that funding, if Godot 4 isn't out by then. Does that make sense?
Okay, so yep, it does. We have two questions. One from Governor. Hello, Governor. When will the lifetime members get the back catalogue? The moment we get the list of who paid in clear funds from Kickstarter, which is probably in about, they say 14 days, so I'm going to say 2 weeks. The moment we've got that, we'll add you to the lifetime thing. You'll get your email. You'll have access to everything on our site.
Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, we don't yet have the funds, and while Kickstarter does collect now, if for some reason it can't do it gives people time to do things like try a different card or pay again later, or, you know, there's all kinds of reasons why, especially with what's going on in the world right now, people might not have the clear funds in their account that they first put on Kickstarter. Pakosh says, here's an odd one. Are the Blender and Luminous potions going to wait for Godot 4 to be released? No, they're not.
They are not. As you might have missed,
they might need to be revised.
Yep.
Because we might need to make changes with some of the models, with changes with Godot 4's importing system.
Yep.
But
yeah, so in the rough timeline that will happen is we will release. No, let's wind back. So we're funded now. We get the funds through in a couple of weeks, which is what Yann was just explaining, and then there'll be a little bit of time after that where we're, you know, the pledges might have gone up, might have gone down, where we just sit down and we work out the timeline for everything to come out. And then we'll release the timeline schedule for the next few courses that are coming out, so you guys know when it's coming, what to expect, when.
Yeah, we want to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, and the LMMS courses and the Blender courses will be coming out before the Godot 4 ones, which is actually much better than the way we did Godot Getaway, because one of the big pains that we had with Godot Getaway was we were doing assets at the same time as Yann was doing the coding, so we ended up with prototype assets in the Godot courses, whereas it would have been much better if we could have done the Blender stuff first and get that high.
Yeah, the stuff that was made in the Blender courses was better.
A lot better.
Yeah, like it just was, because he had the time to do it and go through. And, you know, when you're doing it as a course, one of the best ways to really understand a subject is to teach it. Because you start like, okay, it's like the rubber duck thing, right? By breaking down the problem into simpler language or simpler steps, you understand the problem better.
But also more time. More time was the big one there, because so that's going to really aid this. We've obviously already got assets here, but there's going to be many more assets made as part of the big asset packs, and obviously we're going to continue developing.
We should probably talk about what are the next 2 stretch goals, just in case they happen between now and November. Or the end of November.
Oh, the next one afterwards is a really big one. So, so we've got where to the £12,000 mark, and we're at 13,300 at the moment. So we're actually not that far away.
Yeah, we should probably talk about this.
So the character creation. So you're going to get the asset pack wise, you're going to get some NPCs. You're going to get characters basically to pop in your game in the same style that we're working to here. So we've got character design and creation. So taking the concept art that we've got for characters from there, we're going to actually get into Blender and start making these characters, so you know how to take things from a concept into a proper character. And after that, naturally comes the rigging and animating of characters. They're likely to actually be 2 separate courses, because rigging is a completely different skill to actually animating. So we'll be going through the process of setting up character rigs, and then we get to Yann's stuff.
And then we get to my stuff. Okay. I got distracted by a cat. I'm sorry. My stuff.
Implementing dodging and rolling.
Right. So at the moment, we've got basic rolling and basic dodging, right? What I'd like to do is make this a lot more dynamic. Maybe get the NPCs able to do it as well. Do things like bouncing off walls and moving a bit better. Like, let's actually make this a fun and exciting thing you can do. Like one of those crazy air dash moves in a modern platform game, or a slide move. Like, let's give some actual contextual controls to what can happen and make this a lot more dynamic and exciting. We've also got character customization. So right now we have a system where we've got a roguelite, you've got a character who might have different hairstyle, different skin color, and all the rest of it, but let's have it so you can actually go in and tweak things. Let's have, you can unlock a hairdresser and a dye shop and so on in your town. So as you go through and you play, it's a roguelike. So you're building up something between play sessions, and that's going to be the town. That's why the modular buildings is there.
Yes, and I'll just quickly interject here. You may notice as we've gone through all of these stretch goals, there's a pattern of building upon what we've done before. So we would have done character customization in Blender, and then next time we are customizing the characters over in Godot. We're actually implementing that within the game engine itself.
And then equipping armor and clothing. So right now there's a weapon slot and a potion slot. And when we get the armor stuff, there's going to be an armor slot. But at this stage, we're going to start talking about, okay, so we've got multiple armor slots. We want to stack. We want to mix and match. Really sort of make this feel like a much more in-depth game, a lot of choices being made. Stat bonuses for matching sets, cosmetic bonuses, like maybe you decide you just want gold armor.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why you would want gold armor, but you do you.
Because I'm training to be really strong when I walk around, because gold armor's heavy.
With this really soft, heavy armor.
Yeah.
And then we should talk about off we go on a quest. Towns and villages. So this is rather just you've unlocked a thing. Here's a little, you've unlocked the blacksmith, or you've unlocked the potion shop. The potion shop just appears in this spot. You get the ability to decide how, when, and where. Right. So we're talking like a much bigger scope here.
Yes, so we would have made a couple of houses, but when we come to towns and villages, especially when it comes to the asset pack, we're going to be talking about other things you typically find in towns and villages. Fountains.
And it might even be like you can see a town off in the distance on one of the hills.
Yep.
And every few days they'll send a trader down with some new stuff. Like,
Game soundtrack part 4. So again, more more assets essentially for you to be able to use. And at the moment, you may have guessed we've got a more medieval theme, but we might change that up a little as we start getting further down. So we've got a bit more variation, so it's not just tons.
I do know how much you love polka.
Exactly. That's
one for my Dresden fans out there. What else we got? Okay, we've also got a questing system. So at this point, we start talking about creating a story, creating quests. It's a roguelike, so we're probably going to have some dynamic quests as well as maybe a story quest. We'll probably use the dialogic system, because if you're making a dialogue system, let's use the plugin. We could talk about how to make one from scratch. It's not that it's a difficult thing to do, but why reinvent the wheel? Like, let's use the plugins.
Yes.
Building your kingdom, actually, like building this up, getting NPCs in that aren't just merchants, making the decisions you need to make to make this more make the progression feel better.
Yeah.
And traps and triggers, like various. Right now, we have some very basic traps, and the trigger is touch it. But we can go into things like swinging blades and blow darts that go off at certain points, and poison gas clouds and explosions and flammable gas that if they hit a torch will go flippity, flippity, flippity.
Interesting sound. Can I sample that? I will sample that. That would be one of the sounds you can get.
Flippity, flippity, flippity. It's actually going to be the bass line of one of the medieval soundtracks. Emilio's plugin is amazing. I mean, legit amazing. Scatter by is it Hungry Proton? I think it's Hungry Proton. Is amazing. The Proton Trails, which is by Hungry Proton, which is what we use in the weapons, is amazing. Like, it just creates geometry live as you move something, and we just do that. So I'm just moving some more light to myself because it's getting dark outside.
Oh yeah, the darkness is coming.
I hated that band.
I don't know. So yes, and of course there's much more from there. And going back to what we were saying earlier, as the crowdfunding will be available on the site, these can be unlocked still.
Yep. It is nearly 8 p.m. We've been doing this for almost an hour. Yes, we are also using the waters and riverways thing. Mikey, do you want to give us a quick walk through the overworld again?
Yeah.
I have hidden a weapon in the overworld. Also, when we push the next update, you will get these clouds. I'm a bit proud of these. They will be going on a course. These are very, very simple. Mikey, can you do this? Yeah, I think I can. Great. When can you get it to me? I don't know, like 20 minutes? But I really like the style. I think they came across really well. Mickey Bob the Flute does sound like a cartoon horse.
There we go. I will also work on our scaling as well. I made this house really quick, and then Yann scaled it up because I made it too small. I was like, but it's a hobbit's house.
Not a hobbit's house. It's a Wendy house. And we're in America, a playhouse.
I'm gonna go off this way.
Okay. I'm not seeing you live, so it's fine.
I'm not sure if I push this whether you'll see.
I see. Yep. So one of the things that I really liked about this was once I got the thank you.
I'll just turn it down a little.
That made me feel really good about this is when I got the trees and the foliage out there to Mikey, he couldn't stop playing in it and just walking around exploring, which is a really good sign. Like, this world just feels good to wander around it and explore, even though I know where everything is, more or less. It feels good to explore. This is the Rivers and Waterways plugin. The rocks are there with scatter, as is the trees, the fences around the house, the trees up on the hill, which are different scatter, and the foliage. This is running with 3.33, I think?
Yes. 3.34 is not quite out yet. And as anybody knows, when you're working... anybody working in any sort of production environment, you do not start working in unreleased stuff.
No, you don't. I mean, we're going to... there's a rock in the tree. Hello, rock.
There's a rock in that tree.
How'd you throw it up there?
I don't know.
I know how it got there, but whatever. There's a lot you could do here. I made the decision that we're not going to be using textures on the ground because we're using flat shading everywhere else. And so I'm using Height Map's low poly painter. I didn't like it at first, but it's really grown on me.
Yeah, we kept
Taking
going.
was on holiday too. It's true.
Kept going backwards and forwards with styles for the ground.
Yeah, so the advantage of using the textures is you can do things like, we have this lovely painted texture I made in Substance Painter with a normal map, so you can have the ground and the grass and things looking three-dimensional. But actually, everything else is flat shaded, and it just felt wrong to have two different aesthetics going on. Like, you can do it. I mean, I know things like Astroneer do it really well, but it's not really what we're going for here.
Yes. In fact, as we iterate, there's a chance that we'll try a much lower poly Aria as well. Not necessarily low poly, because she is really low poly, but maybe not smooth shaded. We'll toy with it. Ah, Rose.
Yep.
So that's the only flower I got to make.
Yeah, we have plans for things like, bluebells and other things, but...
Particle effects on this one as well. Nice.
All the gems have the same particle effect. It's a nice little effect. I have put little walls to stop people running up here. Pakosh did point out that if you try, you can get the camera up the under the water, but this will invalidate your warranty, so don't do that.
There we go. Look.
Yep.
Oh, you could do it so if you do that, it ends up all shader effect on the screen.
I mean, I could, not easily. There's also a few tips to make this feel like a real world, which involve, like, the river goes around the corner and there's an invisible wall there, so you can't follow it any further. You can't see that beyond that corner there is no world.
I discovered that, didn't I? I was walking around here going...
Done specifically because of that. And there's a nice little log. I do like these clouds, though. I mean, again, very simple and stylized, but that was the brief I gave you.
It works so well.
Between that and the wind shader, it really makes a difference. And I was very proud of, I was very pleased, it wasn't that difficult, to get the wind shader working on the leaves by tweaking the script. It's a subtle difference, but it makes a huge difference to how the world feels.
I do like this.
So you can play this prototype right now. The link is not here because I moved it.
Is it not in the description of the video? I thought it was there.
Is it? No. I mean, it's on my Kickstarter page.
Oh, have you told anybody about the rocks I made for you?
Well, all 64 of them.
I was like, Yann, do you want some rocks? It was like, yeah, I need a few.
I'll put a couple of rocks in. I can scatter them. Like, yeah, you give me 64. I have to go through each one of these and make these into TSCN files, and some of them are going to be static bodies, some of them are not.
Yep. I had lots of fun making those.
That is our current state of the Your Action role-playing game. That's our adventures with Aria, or Aria's adventure. If you have a male character, you can call him Ari, I guess. It's a good name.
Or Alan.
Yeah, or, I don't know, Songboy. I mean, it's your game. Call them whatever you want.
Definitely.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what people made. One of my favorite things with courses, especially big complex courses like Godot Getaway, is seeing the variations people make. Like, some people go for really high quality stuff or a sci-fi feel, or everything is a jelly bean.
Yes, we're looking at you, Jelly. Although I think he's left.
He's got to watch one sleep.
I'm going to pop that away, because if you pop away your weapon...
I'm really proud of the Overworld, actually. Not least of which because the Overworld, we've done a lot of prototyping and testing and stuff, and we got to, okay, we've now reached this. Let's make it so people can see what we're talking about, get excited about it. But we put that together in 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, we were
a lot of that was just going back and forth over the assets and just painting the terrain. And it's really just painting it, like making it look right, getting the different colors on our palette, and just texturing the mud to look a bit more three-dimensional, and then getting the wind blowing, and it just feels good.
Yeah, it was a really focused couple of days.
It crumbles, Punch.
No.
And also, the posters are randomized, at least most of them. just because reasons.
Ow. I'll never.
It's satisfying, isn't it?
It's very satisfying.
I mean, this is put in just to show, like, we can have an epic weapon that cannot spawn anywhere, and it's just massively overpowered. Like, from a gameplay point of view, I would put a downside on this, like, either as you hold it burns you, or it can be used a certain amount of time, or a chance to break, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fire axe, so you could totally say, well, it's on fire, it's going to hurt you. Yep. But it's really powerful. I think it one-shots people, doesn't it?
Yep.
And again, these skeletons are supposed to be fodder, essentially. That's a boring sword.
Oh, good. You've got the... I like the description on that sword, by the way.
The one I've just not picked up.
Yeah, go look at the description.
So yes, tooltips.
Read it out, because I don't think they're going to be able to read that.
It's dangerous to go alone, but we don't want to spend a lot of money.
I had a lot of fun writing
You've
descriptions.
removed the gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing we noticed, because if you don't know the true value of something, then the shops...
I told you it would happen, and when Jade came on, the first thing that happened when they went to a shop is, but I know this axe is worth 10. I'm not selling it to you for 2.
Yep. So, of course, you can get to this part and kill the boss.
Yep.
Without having to get this weapon or any two-handed weapon, but it's worth your time doing that.
It's fun. I mean, again, it's a tech demo, right? We're showing off the things the game can do.
Exactly. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ah!
Oh, you're alive.
Not for long.
So that's the state of our game so far. That's the state of our prototype. We are fully funded on Kickstarter. People are already getting reports of money being collected by Kickstarter.
Oh.
We're really looking forward to seeing what you guys make and to like the next step. One thing I was planning, can I talk about my pointless thing I was going to add?
This thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Go ahead.
As you'll know from Mikey's fantastic interpretive dance, I was toying with the idea of getting a Boyd system working in the overworld. If you're not familiar with Boyd's is a flocking technique. So for birds and fish to move realistically. It's an artificial life technique that was pioneered by a guy whose name I've forgotten. And it's basically following 3 basic rules.
Could it be Mr. Boyd?
No. But it's one of those things that I thought having little birds or just little colored orbs flocking around the trees and flying around the place would just look awesome.
Maybe even like fireflies and things like that.
And like, I really want to put them in, but I don't know if it's worth it. And Mikey's like, well, I don't know. Is there any way you could use it for a spell? Yeah, I probably could. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to put this in. They're not promised. I'm sort of toying with the idea right now and implementation. Andrew, I saw the message before you redacted it. Yes, we will be looking at various weapon things. I actually did have stun locking in the game for a while, but it made the game too easy, so I took it out because people were saying, I just walk up to a skeleton and hold the button. There's no gameplay here.
Yeah.
Yes. But
it was because the skeletons were hard at one point that it was put in. Then we made the skeletons easier and we forgot to remove the stun lock.
But yeah, we'll definitely talk about how to include things like damage over time, slow, etc. Well, I mean, we already have AoE in there. It's how much of that will make it through into my prototype and how much of it will be talking about how you can do it. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
So it might be I will show you, here's how I would implement a stun. And then you could decide when that stun would happen. Maybe a certain weapon or a certain spell or a certain move would implement the stun.
Brilliant. So, this is the time where we ask, have you guys got any questions?
Yeah.
We're here to answer them. So, birds and or flying insects would make the overworld really
You know what else
alive.
would be nice? Yep. Little will-o'-the-wisps or souls in the dungeon.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you open a casket and they fly out.
They could target towards the player. They could be an enemy.
No, they're voids. They're not. That's a that you've just invented an annoying swarmy thing, like the little what are they called? Silverfish in Minecraft.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, you break a block and then you can't hit them. It's like a baby zombie in Minecraft as well. They're
Why
annoying.
Godot 4? Excellent question. Partly the technical limitations of Godot 3. Godot 3 is a lot of fun and can do 3D. Godot 4 does things better, like the renderer, the light system, the particle system, the navigation system. Partly because releasing something of this scope now for Godot 3 with Godot 4 on the horizon is, how can I put this, financial suicide. Like, we'll release the course and then it'll be irrelevant. So we'll either have to spend the time remaking it for Godot 4 or just write it off.
Yeah.
And partly because people are more excited about Godot 4 than they are Godot 3. Now, people have been saying, why didn't you wait for Godot 4 to release before the Kickstarter, which is a legit question. And the answer is we were really excited about the prototype now. And we figured if we wait 3 to 6 months, we might lose interest.
And now we know that you guys are genuinely interested in this, and that's why we've even put in place continued funding so we could make it even bigger and better than it already is, which is
Stan asks, does everything being flat shaded mean there's no need for substance painter now? We made a choice in our version to make everything flat shaded. Now, if you're taking the Blender thing, the Blender courses, you can make these assets and have them textured. At which point,
I'll just interject really quickly, because flat shaded doesn't mean not textured. You can still have things that are textured and flat shaded. So it's just the aesthetic you're giving your model, and you can even have things smooth shaded, but very faceted as well. So there'll be lots of options, and we'll explore those things in the actual Blender courses themselves. And we'll talk about why you might want to use textures, why you might not want to use textures. There is a performance benefit, but as we can see with our world as it is at the moment, the performance benefit of using a solid texture just to color in the world, but instead of like the tree has two materials. It has the foliage color, and then it has its trunk color. And you could have one texture, literally 1 by 2 pixels, one green, one brown, and color it in that way. Now, you have less draw calls on your model, which is a good performance thing, but that's really something that you really focus on later on rather than right at the very beginning.
We have 45 draw calls in that scene. Like, I'm not sure how much of a performance boost that's going to be.
Oh, that's for the 2D stuff. For the 3D stuff, there are a couple of hundred of them. But when it comes to that, what it does prevent Yann from doing is just recoloring stuff really, really, really quickly with material override. So we've made the active choice to use multi-materialed objects rather than just a single textured object, so we can make those changes in game, especially when it comes to the proceduralness. Actually being able to change out colors of objects without having to swap textures all the time.
Changing the shade of green on the trees massively changes the feel of the scene. And sometimes we'll just make the trees darker or lighter or paler or whatever. So there's no plan for a Substance Painter course, but that's not to say that I couldn't do a few videos on how to take Substance Painter and make some textures on a model like this. Like, we can do something like that. I'm not going to commit to a full Substance Painter course because there is a lot you can do in that. And while it is something I would like to do, I am not promising that right now.
Yeah, it's something that we actually looked at doing in the last Kickstarter we ran, the Mag Racer one. Substance Painter was going to be a course that featured in that. Unfortunately, it didn't fund successfully. I think that was probably more the topic, it being more like a Wipeout racer than an RPG, and RPGs are more exciting.
Said, I love using Substance Painter, and if you find yourself making some of these assets and want to use Substance Painter and you get stuck, ask me in the Discord.
Yeah.
Don't attack your brother while he's sitting on me.
So I hope that answers both your questions. Why Godot 4 and does everything flat shaded? So that took a long time to answer that. We might have segued off into several things. Anyway, does anybody have any other questions before we wrap up for this evening? You're welcome, Stan.
Do I have to go outside? I think I do.
Yes, Yann, you do. There we go.
Yeah,
That's that question answered. Okay, well, I will start wrapping up then. So thank you, everybody. It's been a phenomenal ride so far, and it's going to be...
It's been a rush.
Yes.
Are the buildings only exterior, or are you going to do the interior?
If you have a look at the stretch goals, I believe interior was something it's not on the stretch goals, actually. It's something that we discussed and added to extra things afterwards. But at the moment, there's no plan to go into the building.
There's no plan, although if you make an interior, it's not a difficult thing to do that transition.
It's essentially going to be like your transition from the overworld to the dungeon, only you would transition into a building scene instead. It'd be a new level. With the way that we've currently got it set up, you often find with games that if you that house itself, if you were to just translate it, it would be very difficult to move around and it wouldn't make much sense. So you often find the interior of buildings is a lot larger, almost like a TARDIS effect, than the exterior of the buildings. And there's a good reason for that. It allows the player to move around without getting stuck on stuff.
Do you do discounts for the courses sometimes on the Canopy web pages? We keep meaning to. But every time we remember, oh, it's a holiday today, we should have done like yesterday was Labor Day in the US, which is not a holiday in the UK. It is something we're planning on doing going forward.
Yeah, and we can actually
don't want to do
site-wide
the same
coupons.
kind of sales that Udemy does, which is near constant, because that just feels bad to people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we are thinking about it.
The other thing that we do is we're conscious of the price of our courses, and there will be some courses, I'm sure, in the future that do have a sticker price much higher than the $10 to $25 we've got on the site at the moment. So we try and position ourselves so we're a good value all the time, rather than doing a typical sales tactic of saying this course was $200 and now is only $9.99. No, it's obviously not worth $200 if you're flogging it at 10 quid for all the time. So we don't want to go into those antics. But yes, we'll probably run things like sales around our birthdays and other holiday times. Our birthdays should be holidays, international holidays.
Any regional pricing? No, because that's a limitation on the site we use.
I believe
the site yes.
Yeah.
The site runs in US dollars. And so that's what we have to set the prices to.
I think we can set up multiple prices in different currencies, but
we can set up multiple prices. I've never seen currencies.
There's currencies hidden in there now.
So
we'll look at that, and if it's something that we can do, we'll look at. But again, as I was saying earlier, we try and make sure that our courses are at a reduced cost. And when we actually put up the option to crowdfund, like we've done here, obviously when we say a Godot course or a Blender course or a LMMS course, they're for the path. So it's likely, in fact, it's more than likely, it will be multiple courses.
Yeah. Path is something you've said to me. I don't think you've ever mentioned it to the students.
Yes. I think at some point I might have.
The Godot course may well be broken down into a bundle with lots of courses in it.
Yeah.
But if you guys have access to the Godot course, you have access to all of them. Like, I'm not going to say,
that was
this is
thing.
the Godot course. This is an extra. You didn't buy this one.
Yeah, we were very keen from the very beginning that everybody benefits from an increase in funding. So if we have to split something out into multiple courses because it makes more logical sense to do so, then we'll do that. And if you've backed the Godot path or all three paths, whatever it happens to be, you'll get the appropriate courses.
And that feels like a good place to stop.
It does. So I'll say thank you once again, everybody.
Thank you so much, Toucans. You've really, really blown us away with your support and your generosity and your questions, and sometimes even your criticism. Like, I hate your control system, but you can see Aria's face. I don't want to see her face. I want to avoid the skeletons. Thank you, guys. It really means well to us, and we can't wait to see what you guys make with these courses.
Brilliant. Thank you, and we'll see you this time next week. Bye.
Bye.
Press the button.
Press it.